Following the attack on the United States on 9/11, the U.S. government restructured its handling of investigating and managing immigration and related activity around the world. It created ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement. ICE now has more than 20,000 law enforcement and support personnel in more than 400 offices in the United States and around the world. In 2019, a camera crew was offered access to follow and document what the men and women of ICE do on a daily basis. Every year, ICE removes thousands of immigrants from the United States, the majority for committing crimes.
We're not going to focus on the person that jaywalked down the street. We're talking egregious crimes, murder, sex offenses, child molestation.
A vehicle just pulled up in front of our target house. How you doing?
But the activities of ICE and its enforcement and removal operations is not without controversy.
Hi, officer.
I go hunting for these ICE agents over here.
We see ICE as an assault on the very character and history of the United States.
Think twice, melt the ice.
A lot of people want to make it out that ICE, ERO specifically, wants to target everybody in the country. They wouldn't come on our radar if they were here just for a better life.
These are the men and women of ICE and the work they do 365 days a year.
Are you going to comply this time?
No.
You're not going to comply?
No.
The human stories behind the headlines.
Let's go home.
And their core mission to enforce America's immigration laws. Beyond borders, inside American immigration.
Showtime.
This time on Beyond Borders, Inside American Immigration. A Cuban national with a criminal past appears on a repatriation list.
We make recommendations and nominations to the Cuban government that have extreme criminal histories.
Officers take down an illegal immigrant with a history of domestic violence.
A lot of work went into this arrest, a lot of man hours.
And officers arrest a sexual predator.
Any crime against a child, especially sexual in nature, is a heinous crime.
ICE officers in Miramar, Florida want to detain a Cuban national whose name has appeared on a list for repatriation.
Today we have a Cuban national reporting today. He normally reports yearly. The subject reporting today is an extensive criminal history: burglary, marijuana trafficking, cocaine trafficking. He came during the Mariel time period, so between April 1980 to October 1980 is when they did the Mariel boat lift.
Following a sharp downturn in the Cuban economy in 1980, a mass emigration of Cubans to the United States took place. Fidel Castro announced that Cubans could leave for America if they so wished, and it was arranged for them to travel via boat from the Mariel Harbor in Cuba to Florida. As such, this became known as the Mariel boat lift. Between the 15th of April and the 31st of October 1980, around 125,000 Cubans had emigrated to Florida by boat before the Mariel boat lift was ended mutually by the American and Cuban governments. But many among those emigrating had been released from jails and had extensive criminal histories. Now, ICE is working to repatriate these criminals back to Cuba.
We have now a repatriation list. We make recommendations and nominations to the Cuban government for certain individuals that have extreme criminal histories. The government of Cuba then reviews those requests and approve or disapprove. If they approve, then when those individuals come to report and they're on that list, they're taken into custody. They're sent to Chrome, to the detention center, and are processed to be repatriated back to Cuba.
Ma'am, subject here, final order Cuban crim history, popped up on the repat list. Get your approval for custody.
Looks good.
Good?
Let me know if you need help with anything.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Right now, we're going to talk to him, make sure there's no medical issues that would hinder him being detained. We'll take him back, arrest him, process him, and he'll be transported to Crum Detention Center. His last report date, we asked him to bring in medical documentation, so he may know something's up, but most likely he just thinks it's a regular report date and we're just checking up on his health. Okay, have a seat for me. Right now, bad news. We're gonna be taking you into custody today, okay?
Why? I don't have any problem before.
No, I know. Your name came up on the Mariel repatriation list for Cuba. So in order for us to nominate you to the government of Cuba, we have to take you into custody. The faster we get this done, the faster we can get you down there and they can get the paperwork taken care of, and we'll go from there, okay? If you can stand up for me. Put your hands on the wall over here. Nothing else in your pockets? Put your hands on the wall for me. Put your left hand behind your back. Don't turn on me. Right this way.
In Newark, New Jersey, Officer Ken is giving a briefing about ICE's next targeted enforcement operation.
This operation, Newark Field Office 2020, is going to be focusing on public safety threats, criminal aliens, gangbangers, and foreign warrants. Right now we have over 200 targets that we're looking to target for arrest during the operation, which will run from Monday next week through Saturday of next week. So it's a 6-day op. It's gonna be, like I said, long hours, long days. So get yourself prepared this weekend. It's very important that the locals are notified that we're in the area. I know there's situations that we're dealing with now with the sanctuary status in the state here where we don't get cooperation that we used to get. I've been doing the job for over almost 28 years now. Recently, as of March of this last year, 2019, the New Jersey Attorney General passed an immigrant trust directive, which severely limited the cooperation of the local and state law enforcement with ICE.
ICE agents in Philadelphia face issues as they deal with local law enforcement.
It's very difficult for us. There's individuals that we identify that haven't been arrested by the city of Philadelphia. They're in their custody, they've been charged with a crime. We know who they are. We know that there's somebody that we want to put in removal proceedings or have been already ordered removed, and they won't turn them over to us. They won't even give us a call to tell us, hey, this guy's gonna walk out the door in an hour, come and pick him up. They try to shield them from immigration enforcement.
Broadly speaking, a sanctuary city provides a safe haven for immigrants by setting limits on how far state or local law enforcement will go to cooperate with federal immigration authorities. The ordinance generally prohibits the city from assisting ICE in the enforcement of federal immigration law, unless such assistance is required by federal or state law.
We went from going from a controlled environment, from a jail, to a controlled environment to an ICE facility. Now, they're releasing those individuals instead of turning them over to ICE. So now we spend those extra resources where in the past we didn't. It does create some obstacles for us.
If you have an individual that's illegally in the United States, whether it's in the jail, whether it's in the custody of the police department, you know he's illegally in the United States, and he has committed a crime or she has committed a crime, and yet you won't turn the subject over to ICE because of this new immigrant trust directive, and you release them right back into the community. How does that promote public safety?
We in law enforcement are not supposed to play favorites. We are supposed to enforce the law in a neutral, apolitical, fair manner. And so when you say to one segment of the population, for example, illegal aliens, that you don't have to play by the rules. That is playing favorites. That is putting politics over public safety.
And it's a disservice to all Americans and all individuals that live in the community, including legal immigrants, by allowing these people to go back out and reoffend. It's an unfortunate issue, and I know that many have addressed it in every level of my agency, even the department. And so, as far as sanctuary, I interpret it as those that are failing to cooperate with us. We were not just trying to go arrest anybody and everybody. We still have our priorities, and our priorities start with criminals.
One such case is a South American with multiple convictions living illegally in New Jersey. Officer Ken and his team are en route to arrest him.
We're actually heading into the city of Passaic, which is 5 minutes away from Wallington. It's a Bolivian national that's actually illegally here in the United States. He tried to file paperwork to become legal in the States, and it was denied, probably because of his multiple convictions for DUI, and he also has a sex offense against a child. Any crime against a child, especially sexual in nature, is a heinous crime. As a United States citizens, you would be tried and go to court. You know, if you get convicted, whether you get jail time, probation, you know, it doesn't really matter what your status is as far as the crime. You still will be tried for the crime, as is people that are here, you know, illegally. They'll still be tried for the crime, and if they're convicted, you know, they'll get jail time, probation. We just want to make sure we get them back into our custody when they're finished with the crime. The problem is, if they're not going to the jails and the state prisons, we really won't get them back into our custody if they're only getting probation, because probation doesn't work with us and let us know. What we're gonna do is, because as you can see, we're on a main avenue here with a lot of traffic. You're gonna have a lot of buses, you have a lot of people standing on bus stops, you're gonna have the kids going to school. So we need to, you know, try and get in and get out of this area as soon as possible.
But a problem arises when staking out the suspect's house. There is no indication of which apartment he lives in.
I did a walk-up early in the morning to check the mailboxes, and I didn't see any names. There's like 6 doorbells, but 4 mailboxes. There has been no movement at the front door. All the movement has been going around the right side of the building.
In a house this big, you're trying to find someone, and you know, if you hit a family member, they might not want to give it up, or a friend, they might say no, or even if you get him, sometimes if they don't open the door without a criminal warrant, we can't get into the house or take the door at that point.
ICE Air Operations charters flights to countries that do not border the United States and brings detainees back to their home countries. It also moves detainees to other detention facilities in the United States whenever they reach maximum capacity.
ICE Air, which is a domestic operation and international operation, is based in Mesa, Arizona. And because we're so close to Mesa, we actually do send people all the way out to Mesa on a bus to put them on the plane that might take them to Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador. Otay Mesa is going to be transferring, I believe, around 25 people today. 25 people will be bussed over to the San Diego International Airport, and it'll be put on a private jet that we have, and then they'll be sent to another facility. We call it a loop flight because the flight will actually travel all throughout the United States in a loop, and then it'll end up back here just as a regular bus schedule.
So what we're doing right now is we're moving detainees from San Diego, and we're going to move them to another facility where they're staged for international flights back to their home country, whichever country that may be. Almost all of these people have been through their whole process, seen the judge, and gotten orders of removal from a judge. So yes, most of them are at the end of their road, and they're just on their way home. Ourselves and the crew on the plane will be providing security around the airplane while we do what we need to do, because we are at the public airport.
Once everything is secured, ICE officers begin the process of loading the detainees onto the plane.
They have, I believe, 40 on board right now. We're at the end of the West Coast loop, so they'll pick up from everywhere else and then come here and pick up ours and then finish the flight to Arizona. This is at least once a week that we do these loop flights. When we have more significant stuff going on at the border, then these flights, we get more and more of them to keep up with the flow. But it's at least once a week. We usually are loading around 100 and pulling people off to send to Mexico from here.
But the officers encounter a problem. There is one detainee missing, and the plane is set to leave soon. A Cuban national in the holding area has been taken into custody.
On several occasions, he says, well, I've never committed a crime here. And by the third time, he said, I don't understand, I've never committed a crime here. We, of course, had his background, and he had been incarcerated for cocaine and for heroin. So when I approached him and I spoke to him in the holding cell, and I asked him, why do you continue to say that you have never been arrested here, but you've been incarcerated for these two kind of crimes? His response was, well, that was in Minnesota. And my response was, well, Minnesota is part of the United States.
Stand up for me. Stand up.
In 1981, I get out of immigration, you know. I don't have any big problem before, after that, you know. I think I moved to Minnesota in 1992. I come back for 5 years to go. I have one problem only in 98. In Minnesota, you know. They 3 degrees for 1 cell of cocaine, but after this, I don't have, before I don't have any problem. After this, I don't have any problem either, you know. And I now have a 5 years in Miami, you know, moving to Minnesota, to Florida. I worked for 5 years same place, you know. I don't know. Now I got a check it today. I got it so lucky. I don't know, this is bad news for me. I got a good job. I lose my job, it's a good job, you know. I have my son in Minnesota, you know, he's 21 years now. I moved to Miami, I got a good job now. I'm working for 5 years, same place. And I live with my family, you know. I don't have any more problem before, you know. Now I have this situation.
He will now be moved to Chrome Detention Center for processing. ICE agents are on their way to arrest Miguel Chavez, who is known for domestic violence.
All right, morning, gentlemen. So those of you that have a copy of the FOW plan for today, we're going to be going after target number 2. It's going to be the second one in the packet. Current charges pending are domestic violence and destruction of private property from his most recent arrest. So if you guys want to come in close, I have some maps here to kind of describe what we're going to do. So right here is a blown up image of the street. Freeway access is right here. It's 2 stoplights from the intersection closest to the business. In the strip mall, his business is right here. There is no way to get from this location through the back of the business. There is no rear exits to the business. My intention is for everyone to get on target. I'm going to contact the suspect, confirm he's still there. This morning at 6:30 a.m. So if anything does go sideways, closest hospital for evac purposes is going to be Tri-City, which is just west of this location.
This could be a 3-minute operation. There was a lot of man hours in this, gathering intelligence, surveillance, planning the operation, getting the officers together. Surveillance indicates that the subject is there now. He's at the place of business. We're hopeful we'll encounter him and make the arrest without any incident. We want to go home in the same shape or better than when we arrived.
Officers identify the suspect and spring to action.
you guys doing today? I have a arrest warrant for you. Come with us. I have a warrant for your arrest. You need to come with us. You're under arrest. Stand up. Stand up. Come here. Come here. Come here. I'll explain it to you in a minute. Step out here.
You was here yesterday?
Yes, I was here yesterday. You don't remember me? Do you have any medical problems or anything? You take medicine for anything? Okay. Do you have any kids at home, like little kids? No? Okay. Okay. So where were you, what part of Mexico were you born in? Oaxaca? Okay, be careful.
No incident. The subject did not resist, didn't put up a fight, which is great. Nobody got hurt, nobody interfered without incident. A very brief, quick arrest. A lot of work went into this arrest, a lot of man hours, and success. We're gonna head down to our main building where we're gonna process the individual, take biometrics, and then figure out how we're gonna process the case accordingly.
Officer Alejandro is meeting with other agents that have just arrested a New Zealand national.
Our target came out of the residence, and the officers that were posted up at that residence effected the arrest. So we're headed up there right now to try to catch up with them. The two deportation officers are just asking him some very basic questions. He's saying that he's previously been encountered by immigration authorities and that somehow determined that he was okay to be in the United States. But we know for a fact that that's not the case. This individual was observed driving under the influence. There was a witness that provided an account or a statement, if you will, that he was veering off several lanes to include a bike lane. And this was a concerned citizen that contacted the police department. The police department responded. They eventually came to a bank, and by that time he was crouched on his vehicle, passed out. He was so intoxicated, and so that's what led to the DUI. One of the things with the restraint process that we're going through here, it actually makes it for a more comfortable ride back to the office. His hands come from behind him, from the small of his back behind him to the front, but they're tied to the waist chain, and it makes it for a little more of a comfortable ride.
The New Zealand national will now be transported back to the field office for processing. ICE has an all-female housing unit for detainees.
This is our female housing unit. It is for our low-level females. It's a dorm-style setup where they have open pods with 8 bunks per pod. They're allowed to sit in the common area, watch TV. They have a microwave here. They have recreation outside. They also have kiosks here where they can purchase commissary items. We provide all their basic sanitary needs. Soap, shampoo, toilet paper, that's all provided. But they have access to the phones here most of the day. They can call their family. There's consulate phones. They can call their consulate on there. They can call their legal service providers. It's an immigration detention facility. I mean, there's a different standard because everything here is an administrative or a civil action. It's not a criminal violation that they're here for. They have a lot more freedoms than prisoners do. I mean, the open bay concept is something that's completely different than you'll see in any county jail or federal prison. They're usually on their best behavior while they're here. They don't want to do anything out of the ordinary to jeopardize their case, because anything that they could do here could be used in immigration court against them. So this is the rec area. The performance-based national detention standards, they have up to 4 hours a day for recreation, but the back area is generally open for about 8 or 9 hours a day. So they have access to this area pretty much all during daylight hours. They're here waiting for their turn to speak to an asylum officer, wait for their time to see the judge, waiting for their family to provide information so they can be paroled out if they're eligible for a parole. If they're allowed to be released, they're waiting for that time to come.
Officer Ken is outside the apartment of a sex offender. They don't know the exact address of the Bolivian man, and time is running out. He needs to make a decision before they blow their cover.
Do you want us to wait for the other SWAT guy, or do you want us to hit it now?
What's the ETA?
It was about 5 minutes ago. He said 20 minutes out. He's coming from North Bergen.
He's probably going to hit traffic.
Yeah. All right. I'll give Alex Shalashava a call because his comms are down.
Okay.
And I'll let him know. That we're going to hit it now.
Yeah, the officers are walking up to the residence. As you can see, it's a large residence, multiple apartments in this house, so we have to ensure that we cover the sides and the back and ensure that, because a lot of times people will run out back doors, they'll jump out windows.
Police, open the door.
What's your name?
Juan Carlos Melendres.
What's the date of birth?
12/4/68.
Yeah, that's
Okay, all right. We have a warrant for your arrest warrant.
Well, this is for what?
All right.
Yeah, who's paying
We were knocking on the doors for a while. There's 3 different doors. Someone came out, we were talking to them, and then we asked, who lives in this one? And they said, well, a Bolivian family lives over there. We knocked on the door, he answered the door, he gave us consent to enter the apartment, and we told him, that we had a warrant for his arrest. So it takes a while, especially when you're in a large house like that, and that's why I talk about officer safety, because you're going into the unknown. They know what's in the apartment, we don't, and we have this multiple dwellings that we're dealing with here, and so it worked out. It worked out well, and we were able to make the arrest, and now there's another sex offender that's off the street right now.
The offender is now in custody and will be brought back to a detention center to be processed. A New Zealand national who is in the U.S. without a visa and has been charged with a DUI is back in the field office for processing.
So at this point, we have brought into our office the last of the arrests for today's targeted enforcement operation, and it is the gentleman from New Zealand, the citizen of New Zealand. We'll be taking his biographic information and we'll be capturing his biometrics through digital 10 prints and a digital picture, obviously here. It'll search our database and it'll create a booking in record for our office. He has been previously refused entry because he's from New Zealand. There are certain countries that we have an agreement with, and they participate under the visa waiver program. And basically what that means is that they're exempt from the requirement to come in. The documents that you need to make entry in the United States, you need a valid and unexpired passport and a valid and unexpired visa. So for the visa waiver program people, we don't necessarily need the valid admission into the United States as a visitor, but I suspect that this individual is an intending immigrant. And an intending immigrant would mean that he wants to come and live and reside and work in the United States as opposed to just visit.
They do not have any record of me re-entering, and I do have that's the only way I would have come in here, So they refused my re-entry in 2013 after I was out of the country for a week, and I was told that I could re-enter, and that was wrong. So I turned around and went back to New Zealand. I didn't have any reason to stay in New Zealand, so I lived in Mexico for several years and then drove back up here. As far as what the officers have told me and the detail that they've got, they can't figure out how I got back into the country, basically. When I said to them, hey, I drove my truck from Mexico across to here, that's exactly what I did. The reason why I was living in Mexico, because I was running my business from Mexico to here, because my wife was living here and she could come backwards and forwards. Apparently they'd go and lock me up and wait for a court hearing, wait for me to go in front of a judge. I don't know how long that takes. He said to me it could be up to 2 weeks. I don't know. I don't see the point in being locked up, I mean, hopefully I could get out on a bond and keep my affairs in place, and then, you know, I really don't know until I speak to an immigration attorney.
He will now have to wait in detention, and the court will decide his fate. Back at ICE Air, officers were missing the final detainee to board the plane, and it is set to be leaving soon.
Customs and Border Protection guys got here a little late. They got locked outside the gate, so we had to go back and get them and let them in, escort them over here. We had a couple of little hiccups, but we got everything squared away. Everybody's on the plane. Everybody was approved, so we're good.
With everyone now on board, the ICE team head back to base. The ICE detention center at Chrome, west of Miami, processes hundreds of cases each month, from simple border crossings to major criminals and gang members from all over the world.
We live in Miami, so it's a pretty cultural city where we have a lot of Cuban nationals, Haitian nationals, Dominicans, Brazilians, Mexicans, and a lot of the Central American countries due to the recent border surges, so Guatemalans, Nicaraguans, and Hondurans. Chrome has the capacity of holding 581 detainees. We only hold male detainees and all classification levels, meaning low, medium, or high, depending on the severity of the criminality of the individual coming into custody. The way that we're able to easily identify without having to go each individual criminal history, we separate them into blues, oranges, and reds. A low-level orange and a blue will be able to be commingled. Blue classification is our low-level detainees, and those normally are the no DLs, the driving without a license. Also, they could be DUI, depending on if there was any injury to any of the parties involved. And then there's those individuals that just got apprehended by being here illegally. But then once we get to higher level, the orange and reds primarily are together. High level could be any crime that involves some sort of violence. It could be a crime of some sort of sexual assault in nature, a high-level crime that required a lot of time to be served in the prison system. So now they've come into our custody, and depending on what our risk classification assessment gauges them by is how we're able to determine where they're going to be housed.
And at the highest level, many of the detainees are affiliated with gangs.
We try to identify any sort of tattoos or any markings that they may have that could indicate that they're a member to a gang or of some sort. It's definitively something that we deal with all the time. A lot of times you'll see that certain countries may not get along in a sense, so you may have those rivalries that if you're not paying attention in the detention environment could definitely flare up and then increase the level of disturbances or issues where individuals may actually get hurt, whether that be the detainees or the guards or the officers that are working in the facility.
The Cuban national, with a history of drug trafficking, has also been moved to Chrome.
It's bad, you know. I have my family, my son here, my family, my life here. I'm living here for 39 years, you know. I got a good job. I don't want to go back. I'm working for a lot of years. I pay my taxes for a lot of years. Now she come back even with some. What happened? I don't receive anything. You know, I lose everything. This terrible. I live with my family. This family received me in 1980. I lived together for a couple of years. I moved to 92 to Minnesota. Now, I separate my wife. I have my son. He's 15 years old. He want to move on the mind. I moved to Florida.
He now waits for a decision on his deportation.
As you can see, the majority of the individuals are in their orange uniforms, so meaning they're either medium or medium high. And so here we're also able to accommodate religious diets, medical needs that are specific to the individual. So even though it's an assembly line, if they have a specific diet that they need to adhere by, then they're labeled on their wristband. I can see here it's rice, beans. It looks like a tuna casserole. We have their greens, French fries, broccoli, fruit salad. And then the protein today is what? The chicken salad. They have access to their beverages, and then there's a commissary, so if there's anything that they would prefer to purchase on their own, they can also use that as well. Each time they finish with eating in the dining hall, they're always patted down just to ensure that there's no contraband being taken from the cafeteria into the dorms. That could take the form of utensils or anything that can be sharpened, or actually fruit or anything of that nature, so that that can be held and fermented and create what, could be some sort of like alcoholic beverage like hooch. So that's why they're checked here. They can take what they've purchased from the commissary. So those are authorized lists of things that an outside vendor sells, and then they're able to purchase with their own money. This is one of our housing units. This holds 3 different pods on each floor. Each pod has the ability of holding 60 to 65 detainees. And again, these are separated by classification levels as well. So we're gonna go into this pod. This is where they sleep. This is where they're able to have their phone calls. We have video tablets that they have individual ability to use so that they can contact their family, video, visitations, any sort of entertainment such as movies. They're able to go back outside and they can either participate in basketball, volleyball, football, soccer, which is big, contingent upon the population of inmates that are some detainees that are here. And some of them may actually choose to use the law library so that they can work on their cases if need be. And then there's also visitation from their attorneys or anybody that may be waiting for them. Not because I work here, but Chrome is a fantastic, fantastic detention center. From the medical health centers that we have here, the ability to treat individuals with mental health, the therapy programs. A lot of times individuals come into custodies and upon their medical evaluations, they're being discovered of things that are life-threatening that they didn't even know they had. So, as a whole, and then that coupled with the fact that we try to treat everybody with human dignity, we treat everybody with respect, with professionalism, so that it makes it easier to work in this environment because we understand they're only here for immigration, and then the determining factors is outside of our hand because it lies with the immigration judge, and then we act accordingly. But in the event that any of these individuals are released back into the community, we face a chance of maybe running into them when we're with our families, when we're in a mall, when we're in a shopping center. So therefore, we want to make sure that everybody's treated equitably because it's not for us to make those decisions. Plus, you want to be able to feel comfortable that you can wholeheartedly say hello to somebody, that this is just our job.
This area right here is our outpatient. This is where we see the majority of the patients on a daily basis. We see patients who are new incoming to the facility, and we also see our chronic patients as well. Chronic refers to chronic type conditions such as hypertension, diabetes, asthma. We have patients who have been here in the States for a number of years, and they have had medical care elsewhere. And we also have people who come from other countries where they have never seen a doctor or they have never seen a dental officer. And at that point, we are the first ones diagnosing whatever condition they may have. And they will require a rather extensive workup with blood work, multiple appointments until we actually make the right diagnosis and come up with the right treatment that they may need. We also have had people who come here unbeknownst to us, for example, in the middle of cancer treatment. And we assess those cases, and if we can safely continue their cancer treatment under our custody, we do so. Otherwise, we may make certain recommendations to ICE to consider release until the treatment is completed. This is where we have our negative pressure or isolation rooms. We have 6 of them, 3 on each side. And these are the ones that we use for anybody who may be suspected of having tuberculosis or may have some sort of condition that needs to be isolated. Over in this area, this is a recreation area. Our detainees, they have the right to recreation even if they are in this infirmary or inpatient setting. So we have an indoor recreation area as well as a small patio outside that they can go and get some fresh air and get some sun rays if they want. We have a medical staff assigned to the area to see our medical patients. We also have a psychiatrist here who sees the mental health cases. We have a very large mental health staff here because we see quite a bit of mental health cases. We are basically kind of a referral center, if you will, for the agency because we have so many local area hospitals that we can tap into to have our patients seen. This is the mental health side of the house. As you can see, the beds are different. They're bolted down. They can come here with a diagnosis of schizophrenia, develop an acute psychotic episode. We have had those, and they have required both physical and pharmaceutical restraints. And there are people who have long-term medical issues. In the facility per se, we have people with mental health problems that range anywhere from situational depression. They just got, for example, detained, and of course they are feeling depressed because they just got detained, and that's normal. That can happen to you, for example. We may have somebody suffering from bereavement because they have a family member who died. Or you can have somebody who has had chronic, long-standing mental health issues with like long-standing schizophrenia, psychosis, and so on and so forth.
An illegal immigrant from Haiti has been brought in by Officer Evan and is facing detention in a possible extradition.
I've had an open investigation on an individual who's from Haiti. Person is here illegally, got arrested for several felony charges, so I went ahead and picked him up this morning. We did surveillance on his residence, and we also knew that he had where he was going to be today, so we went ahead and got him, brought him in for processing. After reviewing his case and speaking to him, I realized that maybe he's not the best candidate for detention, so we're going to use a little prosecutorial discretion and release him on alternative to detention instead of taking him into custody. He entered the country when he was about 2 years old. Looks like he's working. Doesn't look like a bad kid to me. I've arrested plenty of people throughout my career, so I have a pretty good judgment on character. He's 20, he's trying to figure out life. He made some poor judgment decisions, pretty serious charges. But I grew up in a neighborhood just like his, so I can understand some of the things that he's saying, and I just felt that giving him a chance right now would be the best option for him.
Officer Evan will need to get clearance to give the 20-year-old a chance to avoid going to a detention center.
Hey, what's up?
What's up, Ricky?
How you doing, man?
I got this case. I got my target this morning. Just judging off his character, doesn't seem like taking him into detention right now would be the best option for him. He's in high school right now. He didn't graduate. He's in night school now, adult school, alternative school, trying to get a GED.
Okay.
Looks like he's, he got a little part-time job helping his mom. He's an adult. He got arrested for 2 felonies, but I just feel like if we cut him a break, that'll be the best option for him right now.
Okay.
Instead of just taking him into the detention and doing all that.
All right, so ATD?
Yeah, if you're cool with that.
We just put him an ankle bracelet and we'll call Cynthia in and get her real quick, so hold on a second. Hey, Cynthia, can you come to the office real quick? All right, thanks. All right, just let her know the specifics and we'll let her make the call. Hey.
Hey, what do you guys have?
Well, yeah, I just arrested somebody this morning, my target. He has 2 felony arrests, but he came when he was 2 years old. I just spoke to Ricky about it. I just feel like after speaking to him, he's 20 years old now. It looks like he have used poor judgment this one time. If we cut him a break, we just agreed that maybe ankle monitor would be better than putting him into detention. Because just starting out his life, just trying to give him a chance, I guess, instead of just putting him into detention. You know how that works. So.
Okay. So it's just an arrest. He has no convictions yet.
He hasn't been convicted. He pending court still. Again, 2 felony charges, 2 pretty egregious felony charges, but he hasn't been convicted. I heard his story. I spoke to him for a while. It looks like it's a one-time thing where he just used poor judgment. And again, he hasn't been convicted. He's
Yeah,
20
I'm
years
good.
old.
I'm good with ATD. Just give me his information and we'll get him started. We'll put the GPS on him and we'll get him all the information.
All right.
Great. Thanks.
That is a benefit, a major benefit, rather than going to the detention. So right now, he will have to be monitored with that 24/7 for a certain amount of time. If he displays good behavior and that he can be compliant to the rules, they'll eventually remove it. and all he has to do is continue to go to court and do not get in trouble again. If he gets arrested again, automatic detention. I told him, you're getting a break. I actually gave him a speech as if I'm his older brother. You need to stop taking life so lightly. Take things more serious. Take responsibility of your actions. Stop blaming other things and other people for what you're doing.
This is the GPS unit we're going to place on our subject today. After this, we'll be monitoring every move he makes. He'll be able to go back into the community, back into his family, and attend his court hearings, and then coming to office visits with our contractor. Contractor would do home visits, and we'll take it from there. Hello, I'm Officer. I'm going to be placing the GPS on your ankle today, okay?
With the GPS ankle bracelet secured, Officer Evan walks the Haitian national out of the ICE center.
I see him as like a younger, even though he's 20, I just see him as like a teenager. So I'm trying to give him some direction and also let him know that the service is giving him a huge break right now.